this week's assignment, The World, I'm Ginny Batchelor. This week's top story is Iran's step toward the release of the hostages as President Carter's deadline nears. This week, the Iranian parliament took a step toward the release of the hostages by agreeing to an important part of President Carter's final proposal. Iran agreed to let Algeria settle lawsuits by companies claiming over $2 billion of Iran's money, now held in United States banks. Rather than dealing directly with Iran, companies would deal with Algeria, and Iran has agreed to go along with whatever Algeria decides. President Carter said we could return the rest of Iran's money, about $7 billion, almost as soon as the hostages are freed. Although Iran hasn't accepted Carter's entire proposal, the president is more optimistic that the hostages may be freed soon. Carter said it looks better, but we still couldn't predict success. Our negotiator Warren Christopher is in Algeria to answer any last-minute questions the Iranians may have. The United States is hoping to hear Iran's response at any moment, although we have been disappointed by them before.
67 years ago this week, January 14, 1914, Henry Ford revolutionized the manufacture of automobiles with his development of the assembly line. This method took only 93 minutes to assemble a car, a job that once had taken 12 hours.
During the past few weeks, President-elect Ronald Reagan announced his choices for 15 cabinet positions. These cabinet members will be his closest advisors. But before they can take office, they must be approved by the Senate. That's because the Constitution says the president may make appointments with the advice and consent of the Senate. Senate committees are now questioning these cabinet choices at meetings called hearings. The Senate has turned down only 8 cabinet choices during the past 200 years. One nominee who has been questioned for many hours is Alexander Haig, Reagan's choice for Secretary of State. Haig also served as one of President Nixon's advisors, and some senators question whether Haig did anything illegal or dishonorable when he worked with Nixon. The rest of the cabinet nominees don't face such tough questioning, and most may be approved by the time Reagan takes office. For the past month or so, Polish workers have observed a kind of truce with their government. They didn't strike or ask for more freedoms because they and the Polish leaders were afraid the Soviet Union would send in soldiers. But now that truce is over. For many years, Polish people have worked at their jobs 6 days a week. But last summer, the government agreed to a 5-day work week, starting in 1981. Now the government says workers must report to work every other Saturday. This past Saturday, millions of Polish workers stayed away from their jobs, demanding that the Polish government live up to its agreement. Farmers in Poland are also demanding to form a labor union like the workers' union Solidarity. Poland's Supreme Court will decide whether the farmers may do so, but in the meanwhile, they continue their demands.
Time for our first pop quiz. The Iranian parliament this week is deciding whether to accept President Carter's final proposal for the release of the hostages. An important part of that proposal is an international commission to decide where the hostages will be released, the amount of the Shah's wealth, lawsuits against Iran. And the correct answer is number 3, lawsuits against Iran.
And now it's time for the answers to last week's clues. A king is honored refers to Martin Luther King's birthday on January 15th. It's a legal holiday in many states to honor the civil rights leader. Dr. King believed peaceful demonstrations could help black people gain their civil rights. For example, blacks in Alabama were required to sit in the back of buses, and Dr. King led a boycott of buses to protest this treatment. He was given the Nobel Peace Prize for his many efforts to help black people. He was assassinated in 1968, but is still mourned and honored today. Carter's new numbers refers to the federal budget that President Carter presents to Congress on January 15th. It's for about $750 billion. Ronald Reagan will get his chance to make changes in the budget after he takes office next week. Then Congress will begin debating the proposed budget. 2 for New Orleans refers to the football teams who will face each other in the Super Bowl in New Orleans, Louisiana on January 25th. The Oakland Raiders won the American Conference Championship this past weekend and will play in the Super Bowl for the 3rd time, looking for their 2nd win. The Philadelphia Eagles are the National Conference champs, and they'll go to the Super Bowl for the first time.
Time for our second pop quiz. During the past week, senators have been questioning the people Ronald Reagan has selected for his cabinet. What gives the Senate the responsibility for approving the president's advisors? The Supreme Court, Congress, the Constitution. And the correct answer is number 3, the Constitution.
When a person is sick, he may go to a doctor who specializes in certain illnesses, heart problems, for example, or broken bones. Reporter Norma Press discovered that animal doctors may also specialize. This week, she visits a veterinarian whose only patients are cats.
Cat doctor? And how old is the kitten? Okay, if it's 9 months of age, and these would be the first vaccinations?
Dr. Joanna Guglielmino is a veterinarian. She is trained to take care of all kinds of animals, but she decided to be a cat doctor only. She says cat owners are happy they can sit in her waiting room without dogs growling at their pets. And she also has personal reasons for specializing in cats.
I've been a cat owner for years, and I'm fascinated by them. I enjoy their antics, and I find them usually very easy to handle. My surroundings can be small, and it's really comfortable, usually very quiet, and I just enjoy working around them. I have an affinity for cats.
Dr. Guglielmino says many times youngsters will alert their parents that there's a problem with their cat long before the adults notice it. She gives some advice on how you can tell your cat or dog needs to see a doctor.
Catsy is a female cat. We might use her to demonstrate some things that you can look for in your own pet that might give you some clues that there's an illness that needs to be attended to by a veterinarian. First thing we might look at are the eyes and the nose. If there's any discharge from the eyes, or if the eyes are blinking a lot, that's a suggestion that there are problems in the eyes. If cats and dogs have ear problems, and if you find your pet is scratching a lot about the ears or rubbing its head along the ground, it should be taken to a veterinarian to make sure that the ears don't have any ear mites.
And one final word of advice from the cat doctor. If you don't have a pet but are planning to get one, be sure you're ready to give it all the care it needs and deserves. For Assignment the World, I'm Norma Press.
125 years ago this week, January 18, 1856, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams was born. 37 years later, in 1893, Dr. Williams performed the first operation on a human heart. This was considered an amazing achievement in the 19th century.
About 40 years ago, Congress approved a law setting a minimum wage for many American workers. A minimum wage is the lowest wage a person can be paid for doing a job. The minimum wage was started to prevent employers from taking advantage of workers. At first, it was 25 cents an hour, but now it is $3.35 an hour. Lately, there have been proposals to change this minimum wage law because there are so many teenagers who can't get jobs. This year, Congress is expected to consider a proposal to have a lower minimum wage for teenagers. People who support this proposal say it will help many teenagers find jobs because employers will be willing to hire more teenagers if they can pay them less. They also say that teenagers have fewer job skills and actually deserve less pay than adults. When they learn their jobs, then they could be paid more. Opponents of a lower minimum wage for teenagers agree that more teenagers might be hired, but they say adults getting the higher wages will be fired. They believe the minimum wage is already so low that it's hard for people to live on. But what do you think? Should there be a lower minimum wage for teenagers? Write and let us know what you think. We'd like to hear from each one of you. We experienced a surprising drop-off in our mailbag tally for this week. After last week's 1,000 letters, we expected great things for our question on selling deposit bottles and cans in stores. But only 400 letters came in, and the whopping majority, 85.4% of you, felt that all drinks should be sold only in returnable containers. Only 12.9% of the letters believed that non-returnable cans and bottles were okay, and a very small number of letters, 1.7%, wanted the choice to be up to the individual. This issue was one of the most lopsided ever. Nearly every letter in the majority that favored returnables said it would do great things for the ecology and even the economy. Gary DeMora of Rochester, New York, is in favor of a law that says we can only have returnable bottles because it would save resources such as coal, gas, and wood. It would also help reduce pollution and remove glass from streets, streams, and parks. Beth Boone of Portland, Connecticut shares that opinion, but she has her eye on the money that can be saved. We should have returnable cans and bottles so we can have a little money on the side to buy something extra. We could also save up the money to help pay for more food. Those letters against a returnables law cited several interesting reasons, such as the effect on jobs, older people, and kids. One letter even suggested that paying money for bottles would encourage people to drink things that are not really good for them. David Larrabee of Old Greenwich, Connecticut, feels that the whole idea of having only returnable bottles and cans puts too much burden on the store owners. They have to put the old cans somewhere, then they could use that space to sell products to make more money. Our mailbag department hopes that you viewers pick up the pace and pick up your pens for our next two issues. Let us know what you think about whether or not there should be a draft and whether or not teenagers should be paid less than the minimum wage. Write to us here at Assignment the World, Post Office Box 21, Rochester, New York, 14601. And now here are the clues to next week's show. Number 40. Number 40. Second clue for next week, need lead. And I'll spell that one out for you, Neidlead. And that is one of our infamous scrambled letter clues. And finally for next week, frozen juice. Frozen juice. These are clues to events we think will happen during the coming week. Good luck.
Time for our third pop quiz. Polish workers have recently gained many rights that are not given to workers in other communist countries. But they believe the government is not living up to its promises for a farmers' union, 5-day work week, 2-week vacation. And the correct answer is number 2, 5-day work week.
And that's our show for this week. From all of us here at Assignment the World, I'm Ginny Batchelor. We'll see you next week.